Hello there, people of love, and welcome to Love Awakening, the Valentine special on African Bridal Experience, the podcast. Now, I have a thought I'd like to share with you. A lot of people I know say communication is such a burden if comprehension is lost. Now, while I agree with that on so many grounds, I'd like to paint a picture with you. Debt. For a traditional Nigerian English speaker, death is D-E-A-T-H in pronunciation. It is the fatality of life. But when we talk about proper use of English, debt is D-E-B-T. We talk about things that are owed. Financial constraints, we talk about financial pressure when we talk about debt. And today, that's my conversation with you. Till death do us part. When you hear that, do you hear death or do you hear owing? Because debt could be the death of your relationship or your marriage. Hello there, people of love, and welcome back to African Bridal Experience, the podcast, with our Valentine special, Love Awakening. Before the break, I told you that we will be talking about Till Death Do Us Part, analyzing all of the financial constraints that could put death to your love or marriage, as the case may be. Now, I cannot have this conversation alone, like I said. Today's guest, I'm pretty excited, but let's get into it. He is a global executive, celebrated for transformative leadership and, of course, strategic innovation across multiple sectors, the likes of which I can't begin to name. Please, I want you to get very excited for Mr. Odera Macfoy Akachukwu. How you doing?
Hello.
Of course, I expect him to enter like that. How you doing?
I'm all right.
It's great to have you. How are you feeling, first of all?
Flushed? Yeah.
I mean that's adequate. I would say, but people struggle to believe that I'd be flushed on this. They say I've done this 1,000 times. You should be used to it.
I guess it's like, are you familiar with the concept of glocal? So glocal was a concept introduced by the late vice chancellor of my alma mater, Coventry University, where she said to us, we must strive to think global but act locally. Over the last decade plus, I have lived, worked, acted in a global space, and sitting down here with you is quite local. So it's, for me, a fulfillment of prophecy and testimony.
Damn. I mean, if the rest of this conversation is going to be like this, I might as well just concede the mic to you, because this man, nothing's on the surface with you, is it? No, but I mean, it's appreciated, to be very honest with you. Now, this conversation having with you, first of all, of course, outside of the business, outside of all of your successes, professionally, you're also a successful married man. For us that follow him on Instagram, I remember on his wife's birthday, we were tensed. I promise you we're tensed. There were ice in my veins. I could not move my hands. But yes, that is one of the reasons why we have you here, because beyond just being someone who understands money and who understands success and how to manage success, as the case may be, you're also someone who understands how to do it in marriage. Because again, you are living and breathing in marriage. Because again, we're talking about till death do people part. Now, first of all, I want to get your thoughts on the topic.
It's an interesting one. That's because a lot of people feel or think that marriage is something you wing. They feel like it's something that we'll figure out. No two marriages are the same. I'm just gonna make it work for myself. But then to get a job, they spend 5-6 years of primary school, 6 years of secondary school, get a degree for 4 years, and maybe do a master's and a PhD to earn a salary or do a business. Or to drive a car, they get lessons, or to play an instrument, they get lessons. But with marriage, which is probably the most important of the institutions, we want to freestyle, and we want to do it our way, and that sometimes spells disaster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, truly, no two marriages are the same. But if you understand frameworks, if you understand process, if you understand calibration, then you can put yourself in the right frequency to have some success. So the concept of to depth to a spot, right, is one where I want to start off by saying, let's not end up substituting depth for depth, or depth for depth for depth.
Absolutely.
Right? But it's one that if we understand from a granular level, pre-marriage, pre-relationship, pre-dating, or predating, pun intended.
I thought I was going to wait for
or, to singleness or being single.
Yeah.
Then that sets us up for that future.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to walk backwards. So being a supply chain professional and having an operations background, I'm going to use a lot of terms and terminologies. But
Absolutely.
I
expect that, please.
There's a book by Amazon. It's very popular. It's called Walking Backwards. And walking backwards pretty much is thinking from the back to the front. So we're going to walk backwards.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
No, I mean, I like that. I mean, to be very honest with you, there's not a lot of people that I would let just go on and on about it, but I do have to let you go on and on for a lot of reasons. Number one, you have a command on the subject matter, and I believe so based on my own knowledge and based on my own assessment. And secondly, I can also just basically by the little research I did before this, understand that this is a very important conversation for married couples, right? Because we talk about a lot of things. We talk about sex, we talk about children, we talk about a lot of things, but financials are another part that a lot of people do not want to talk about, and it gets very tricky to talk about it. Let's start from the beginning. How early is too early to start a conversation about finances with someone that you're romantically interested in?
I think even before that, you should start talking about finances when you're 17 years old. You should start talking about finances when you're 13 years old.
Okay.
That's beginning of secondary school.
Right, of course.
To beginning of university. Because you have to form those habits. You have to become those habits, right? And then when you've become those habits, you have your own system. And then you meet, because remember, we date when we're young, right?
Absolutely.
We date when we're in secondary school. We would buy those chocolates with little bunnies, right? And then maybe we'll give it to 2 different Valentines, and you'll be my Valentine, right?
Yeah, of course.
And then we date when we're in university as well, whether it's CAF 2, CAF 3 kind of dating, or let's go to Mama Put, or let me finesse and flex. And then we start to date afterwards. And unfortunately, as human beings, we repeat patterns and we repeat cycles.
Absolutely.
So it's important to learn about finances earlier, so that way you already have a character or a way, almost a way form that gets you into that position.
Absolutely. I mean, to be very honest now, let's get into it. Now, you've talked about individual understanding of finances. I'm now trying to break into, and I'll give you an example. You start off a conversation with, no disrespect to a lot of Nigerian women, but a lot of Nigerian women who actually work for their money, who actually, are independent women who are doing well for themselves, find it more often than not that they would basically find themselves in positions where they have men who are with them for the success that they have. And so it's a tricky conversation when you meet a woman who's successful and who anticipates more often than not and has to build up a wall to protect herself from men who are with her for that purpose. How do you start off a conversation with a woman again about, hey, we're going to be together, or we're trying to start a relationship of the sort? Where's the common ground? How do you even ask her how much she earns, for example?
So, first of all, this is a trick question.
Yeah.
It's a trick question because you said a lot of women.
Yeah.
My sisters were told me never to generalize, right? So
no, of course. That's
so
what I said.
We would say some.
Some, okay.
It's a very difficult one.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult one because you can't necessarily tell the person's intention, right? You can't really tell. So I give you one. I lived in the US.
Mm-hmm.
It's a clear story. So you have a couple immigrants, right? People like ourselves who moved to the US as adults, who maybe come in through college and we finish school, and you're working through this period called your OTP period, or what it's called now, where you have to get a work permit. Hopefully a company sponsors you, and then you get immigration and you become with party citizenship, right? Or you could go through that path through marriage. So you have people who come in who clearly are in good schools, who clearly have a future, but it's almost like a post-dated check. But then you have women who are born in the US who already have an advantage, who are cashing out today.
Right.
And then some of them will be like, yeah, I can't really date this guy because, quote unquote, he wants to use me for papers, right?
Right.
Or he wants to use me because blah, blah, blah. And then you have some who are like, it doesn't matter. I actually see you as an individual. You're a person. I believe in you. Let's walk this thing through. Fun fact: 10 years down the line, a lot of those women are single. I use word a lot. And
Don't
many
generalize.
and many of the ones who took those chances, you could flip a coin and say some of them actually
would fall for
bet
this first
wrong,
cup. Yeah, of course.
but a lot of them bet right,
Yeah.
and it worked out for them.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I said it's more about the pre-work than the post-work, because it's kind of like we're talking about how, like, before the cameras came on, how guys can meet each other and vibe.
I'm sure,
Vibe on
absolutely.
football,
Yeah.
right? The gentleman behind the camera was like, I hope you're not a Chelsea fan. I'm like, yes, I'm a lifelong Chelsea fan. Well, still vibed on the banter, right? The rivalry.
Absolutely.
So what that means is, if you meet someone and you can identify common ground, it makes it easy to have a conversation if they're on the same tribe, from the same tribe as you.
Absolutely.
So what that means is, if I meet a person who's practicing the principles, who understands the principles of finance, it doesn't matter if they have it today or tomorrow, they will have it eventually.
I see.
And so then it becomes easy because we're both in the same space. But if I'm speaking English and you're speaking chemistry, and our chemistry and English don't match, then we're going to have a problem. And I think it becomes very important that we actually try to define what is chemistry and what is English, right? What is hopes and dreams versus actual practice with formula, and create formulas that you can put together to, take a plan, take a formula, make it into a plan, a vision, actionable, and it's specific, measurable, attainable, and time bound.
Yeah.
So to answer your question very simply, guys, go get some money before you want to marry. Don't go and take someone's daughter to a mansion and bring her to your 1-bedroom. If you do that, you have to have a clear-cut plan, because by definition, a woman is a helper, a helpmate. A woman is an incubator. If you come to her and you tell her all these plenty English and dreams, and 2-3 years down the line, you haven't put it to work, you're going to call her a nagging woman. But she's not nagging. She's just prophesying. She's taking the words and promises you gave her, and she's been waiting for you to give her the ingredients to make that meal, but you haven't. And your lazy ass is now getting angry because it's like, my wife today nag, my babe today nag. No, she's not. This girl had a great life. Her family afforded her. And of course, parents will say things like, we should build on their successes.
Right.
So for her to bet and take a chance on you should actually make you doubly bet on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then my guy, go back to your father's house.
Okay, so let's get personal for a bit, right?
No offense.
And no. I mean, offense. If it's gonna make you better, by all means, you should take offense. I mean, some of the greatest development that we have is from a place of offense. We get uncomfortable and then we improve. No, it's, of course, if you're offended, it means you're uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, you're gonna work, because a lot of. Anyways, that's a conversation for another day. But let's get personal for a bit, right? You talked like a man of faith. Yes. Right, so obviously you understand your faith. Faith is a big part, plays a big part in what you're talking about in all of this. Now, I want to get personal and ask you. Now, you're married. You obviously had a flourishing dating life. If you guys decided to, don't say hi to your wife. I'm single. Don't do that to me. Can someone get him off, please? Thank you very much. But yeah,
it is sweet. But yeah, that's in advance, babe.
Can you imagine? See, so yeah. The idea, basically, what I'm trying to now get is, for you now, what was the place in your dating? How did you ease into the conversation about finance? Talking about how do you want to do it? What do we expect this relationship to be? And where does finance come in? For example, we're talking about dates, right? You've talked about you now going to date someone who's coming from a background that they are probably way better than you. You understand? And so she has birthdays when her father can take her to Red Lobster, take her to have steak dinners, to have, very expensive seafood and all of that. You want to take her to Chick-fil-A or something. You want to take her to something that you can afford, right? Where's the conversation about, hey, let's have expectations and also let's have realities to be able to balance that out. But for us to be able to have that, what is the financial conversation that you had to have, and at what point did you have it?
I noticed I haven't answered the question straight, and I always go around.
Yes, and that's why I trust me. We will get there.
You're not going to catch me, right?
Okay.
But the conversation should happen at multiple levels. So let's assume you're already in a relationship with this individual. Mm-hmm. Let's assume you've passed the talking stage, and now you've passed the dating stage. Mm-hmm. You're in a relationship /courting stage where it's like, I'm about to.
Yeah.
by then, I'm assuming you already know, you know yourselves. You know what she does. You know what you do. You know your earning capabilities. And by then, you're already starting to think about how many children you want to have, what kind of wedding do you potentially want to have, where do you potentially want to live, what kind of life do you want to have. But you can't really have those conversations. I mean, we can have those conversations based off of monopoly money ideas, right?
Okay.
Or we can actually sit down and have a heart-to-heart. And that heart-to-heart is quite uncomfortable because for us men, it makes us vulnerable.
Right.
It's especially even more difficult when you started off wrong. And like I said, I'm going to rewind. There's a saying in Igbo, I'm Igbo, it goes, Akeje Bido, something my father always said to me. It means the hand in which you start. So let's say you started off flashy. You started off love bombing, as the women like to accuse us of, which I don't think is a real thing. You started off, five-star dinners. You started off, maybe using your dad's car. You started off maybe using
trying to impress.
Not necessarily trying to impress, but
just
correct.
showing,
Let's use that word, coming correct.
Coming correct, yeah, because they said,
right. So you started off coming correct, right? And then you've gotten to this phase. At some point, you have to have that honest conversation where it's like, hey, I'm a civil servant. Here's what I earn.
Yeah.
But I also do photography on the side.
And coming to
monthly,
Jesus.
Here's what I kind of get, right? Or, hey, I'm starting this business, potentially XYZ. I would approach it from, do you have compatibility of dreams? Right? Because when I start talking about, hey, here's what I'm doing currently. Here's what I'm going to. I'm hoping she's able to reciprocate in the conversation.
Yeah.
And that then opens the door a little bit. But if you come out straight and say, hey, I have my $50 in my pocket, what do you have in your pocket? It then comes into the whole answer the man.
Yeah, what do you want my money for?
Like answer the man, right?
Right.
But if we come from a perspective of we're planning, we're trying to build, but in this, here's what I have, and here's what you have. But let's even make it more interesting. For myself and my wife, we had the finance conversation in the third day.
Third day.
That made it a bit easy because we didn't talk about what do we have. We talked about the frameworks. Right? My wife was very adamant of, do you have a budget? Because she met me when I was outside. Right?
Yeah.
She met me when I was outside. Like she met me when it was, $1,200. $1,200 every night. We had to get the Ace and Dorime and the section.
Yeah.
And she was wondering, is this sustainable? Is this boy a Yahoo boy? Right?
Yeah,
but he wasn't any of those things. So for her, it was, do you have a budget?
Yeah.
And she would always ask, and she would ask things like, what's your philosophy of money? Right? And it would be during random conversations. And we would play Monopoly together. And based off of how we played Monopoly, it would show each person's strategy. Yeah. Are you a saver? Are you a buy up the street? Are you a, games like Monopoly would actually show those things.
Yeah.
And that way, through gamification and through those random, questions of like, what are you? It started to ring, and then we were then able to, during marriage counseling, which is a whole different conversation. They had this textbook that they gave us when I was this thick. And there was a whole chapter there on finance, which was probably one of the most difficult chapters to go through because it's very detailed. And we did the self-work. I'm pretty grateful for that conversation because, you never think you have money, especially when it's one thing when you're guaranteed, a big check every 2 weeks or every month. And you know that you're doing business and money is coming.
Absolutely.
But you think it's always going to come. But, in a flash.
It can just all go away.
And then what happens then?
Yeah.
Right? So, I know. So, yeah. I don't think there's the day or the date. For me, it was day 3. It was, we dated for about 9 months, which people say is kind of short. But we had that conversation in volumes. Until we actually had the spreadsheet conversation where I woke up one morning, came downstairs, and on the big screen TV, there was an Excel sheet open with her budget, my budget, our budget. Where we'll get to there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, most definitely.
That was a dun moment. And even then I was offended. Why are you counting my money?
Yeah.
But let me show you, there was something she did that was quite crazy. She made me, if you're in the US, you have like credit cards, right? So
Yeah.
American Express, everything I run through my platinum card. And she told me like one of those evenings, like download like your statement for the last 60 days. And we did. And there's a way it gives you a pie chart. And she was like, categories. And it showed about $9,000 something spent on drinks. Like on the pie chart,
Yeah.
50 something percent
Over 60
was
days.
on drinks. But I didn't think I was spending that much because
because it was just,
it was
yeah.
from the retail side of $70 a bottle, $80 a bottle,
Yeah.
to the $350 every night, to the $700 dorime. She showed me the full picture. And I didn't sleep off for like 2 days.
Yeah, when you have those kind of conversations, they're like, what am I doing? Of course, I get it.
So, yeah, so...
I mean, by all means, I understand that this conversation is going to cause a lot of things for us, but we have to take a very short break. I understand that there's so much more that we haven't touched on. There's so many things that we need Mr. Odera to help us dive deep into. He'll be our oxygen tank, and he will help us through snorkeling the deep waters of till death do us part. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you just after we pay the light bill.